highlight the opportunities that are in the employment field for individuals with Down syndrome, and engage companies and prospective employers while encouraging them to hire individuals with Down syndrome. So without further ado, we're all here to listen to our affiliate in Massachusetts. So I will give it away to the Massachusetts Down Syndrome Congress.
Thank you, Colleen. This is Maureen Gallagher, and it's a pleasure to be here with all of you today. The MDSC launched an initiative about a year and a half ago called UnxStar, and that's what we're going to be talking to you about today. We realized at the MDSC that the adult opportunities in the employment arena were very limited, and we wanted to make an impact in the opportunities for individuals with Down syndrome and other intellectual and developmental disabilities across the Commonwealth. Next slide, please. So the goal of the UnxStar campaign is to open the eyes of employers to the power of people with Down syndrome in the workplace. Next 2 slides. So what you'll learn from this session, we'll talk about the critical nature of changing the current employment situation for people with Down syndrome and other disabilities, how to build an employment initiative that engages employers and makes a difference in their community, ways you can approach developing successful partnerships with employers interested in hiring people with Down syndrome, and how you can work with other advocacy groups in your area to leverage advocacy efforts to ensure adequate funding for employment services. Next slide. So if we think about how far we've come as a community, it's really very encouraging to see all the advances that have been made in healthcare, all the opportunities in early intervention. We've been working really hard in best practices in an inclusive education. And now there are even college opportunities for individuals with Down syndrome to be able to be alongside their peers and taking college courses and things like that. And here in Massachusetts, we have the inclusive concurrent enrollment initiatives where high schools can partner with community colleges and universities and have, between the ages of 18 and 22, some really wonderful college preparatory classes that they can, use as great learning ground to prepare for employment. Next slide. So our strategic vision at the MDSC is that we really want to make a difference across the lifespan. So meaningful integrated employment is a critical next step toward full inclusion and participation in the community. We're very proud, and we have a speaker here, Margaret Van Gelder from our Mass Department of Developmental Services, that through her work and the work of her colleagues, sheltered workshops have now been closed down in Massachusetts as of the end of June 2016. So DDS is no longer funding agencies that are providing only sheltered workshops for our loved ones with Down syndrome. So policy is a very important part of where we're, what's kind of leading to these next steps in integrated meaningful employment, and Margaret will talk a little bit more about that. Next slide. So if you look at the employment figures for the disability community, it really does point to a national crisis. Even though we've made all this progress as a community over the years, the employment statistics are somewhat alarming. The unemployment rate for people with disabilities is 120% higher than that for people without disabilities. Only 1/3 of eligible adults with intellectual disabilities are employed, and 1/3 of those eligible adults with intellectual disabilities have never held a job. So the fact that NDSS has a new employment initiative, the MDSC does, there's a good reason for it, and we're hoping that many of you on the call today are perhaps already working on this, or perhaps what you learned today on the webinar, you'll have some tips and tools and strategies that will help you improve the employment outcomes in your area. Next slide. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the McKinsey & Company report that came out in 2014. The name of the report was The Value That Employees with Down Syndrome Can Add to Organizations. And that was this study was done with help from the Alana Institute. And I think it's really important to think about, obviously we know we want individuals with Down syndrome to have meaningful integrated employment opportunities, but it's not just a one-way street. Not only do our loved ones with Down syndrome need jobs and meaningful jobs, but employers need a diverse workforce, and they want to keep that workforce motivated. They want to create positive culture in their companies. So this report really very nicely portrays what the advantages are from the employer's perspective. And as you go out and you start to talk to employers about your excitement about new opportunities for people with Down syndrome, this study is something you can point to that I think other companies will really value hearing about. So basically, some of the conclusions of this study show that there are mutual gains when people with Down syndrome are included in the workplace. People with Down syndrome involved in such initiatives have a better quality of life and opportunities for development, while the companies that employ them often report significant improvements in their overall organizational health. Next slide. So let's look at some of the areas where these companies have the opportunity to have an impact on their organizational health. So these are the areas that were looked at: leadership, client satisfaction, culture and climate, motivation, coordination, and control. Next slide. So in the leadership area, it was found that people with Down syndrome help others to develop virtues such as patience and tolerance. And as a result, their supervisors became better able to handle adversity and meet the various demands of team members and clients. Many managers found that they changed the way they lead, shifting from an authoritarian to a more participative model. So, as leaders and managers get more engaged in employing a more diversified workforce, and more specifically including individuals with Down syndrome in their workforce, there's some direct leadership benefits for people in their team. Next slide. In terms of client satisfaction, it was found that employees and managers believe that the interaction between people with Down syndrome and business clients to be very successful. We have lots of examples that Josh and I have seen here in Massachusetts and stories that we've heard. And one of our adults, Phil Donahue, when you hear about his managers that talk about him, and he's been working at Market Basket for over 20 years, they say the customers come in and they look for Phil. They want to talk to him. They, feel better about the company itself because they know they're a company that has compassion and that values all employees, including employees from diverse backgrounds or who have disabilities. So there's some direct benefits to client satisfaction. And their simple and direct way of communicating and the empathy they typically display seem to be very much appreciated by the public. So when someone like Phil isn't working, people will say, "Where is he? We'd like to see him." And so it really engages clients in a way that they feel really positive about the company. Next slide. Culture and climate, which is also a factor. It's found that people with Down syndrome make the work environment more united and collaborative. One of our employers that as a matter of fact, we just gave them an award, Verk Enterprises, basically found that when they hired individuals with Down syndrome or other intellectual disabilities, the other employees were highly motivated. In other words, they'd see how hard the individuals with Down syndrome was working. They'd see them show up to work early, not on time, but early, work hard the whole day, not worry about breaks. And it really lifted everybody's mood and they made them want to work more together and work harder. And so that was something that Verk Enterprises really saw, and now they're hiring like 20% of their workforce is people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So they've actually found it to be a strong business model. Next slide. Motivation is also important. Seeing a person with disabilities in the work environment, performing tasks and overcoming challenges, makes the rest of the team think about how they can overcome their own limitations and exceed expectations. You see a nice picture here of John Anton, who works at the State House here in Massachusetts. Many of you know him. He's an ambassador for MDSS as well, just went to the Buddy Walk on Washington with us. And when everyone knows him at the Massachusetts State House, and when they see him again working hard and contributing in so many ways, that people really are elevated in the State House and feel really positive about their own contributions. Next slide. And coordination and control, working with people with Down syndrome helps leaders develop conflict resolution skills. The novel situations that arise from working with people with disabilities, such as asking questions of the manager in the middle of serving a client, help them require resilience that they did not have before. So again, the skills that you develop as a leader and a manager transfer to other employees that you're working with. Next slide. And I just wanted to highlight some of the campaign partners in our UnxStar initiative. Our lead partner is the Mass Department of Developmental Services, which is our state agency that supports individuals with Down syndrome and other intellectual and developmental disabilities throughout the Commonwealth. And they've been an amazing partner and led us to starting to collaborate now with these regional employment collaboratives that are across the Commonwealth in various areas. And the regional employment collaboratives are partnering with us. And when we talk to an employer and they say, yes, we would like to try hiring a person, the regional employment collaboratives will find a qualified candidate to match that particular employer's needs. So it's been a fantastic collaboration. And we also have collaborations with Best Buddies Jobs, Work Without Limits, and the Combined Jewish Philanthropy. So it's certainly a team effort on all of our parts. Next slide. So now I'd like to introduce Margaret Van Gelder, who is a statewide director of employment and family support at DDS.
Thanks very much, Maureen, and I'm really pleased to be here with everyone today and to share kind of our experiences and perspective in our partnership and collaboration with the Down Syndrome Congress here in Massachusetts and their employment campaign, and how this ties very nicely with our efforts around promoting employment. You can go to the next slide. Just very briefly, just to give you some background on who we are, and there's probably comparable state agencies in every state that people on the call might be from. But we're one of the health and human service agencies here in Massachusetts. We're actually the second largest. And we provide services to both children and adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities, including individuals on the autism spectrum who don't have an intellectual disability. We also provide a whole array of supports to families. We're currently serving more than 37,000 individuals. And in these slides you're looking at were really developed for more of a business employer presentation. And so partly we were really trying to communicate the importance of understanding that among people with intellectual disabilities, Down syndrome, autism, that it's still a very diverse and heterogeneous group of individuals with a wide range of skills and talents who are eager to work. And part of our role is how to help support, through our funding and resources, opportunities for individuals to go to work. And our mission is to create, in partnership with others, innovative and genuine opportunities for individuals to participate fully and meaningfully in and contribute to their communities as valued members. And we really view employment, particularly for adults, as one of the most important ways that people contribute, are fully integrated, included, valued, and contributing as members of their communities. You can go to the next slide. So here in Massachusetts, we've been engaged in employment initiatives to really help, as Maureen described earlier, moving away from kind of older models, segregated work programs, filtered workshops, to really trying to promote more integrated employment opportunities, and developed an employment first policy initially back in 2010. And it was really recognized then by the voice of self-advocates, families, and the success of some individuals that, you know, how important having a job is. And Maureen just shared some really good information about the different benefits and ways people contribute to the workplace. But we know that having a job is one of the most important ways people have valued roles, make contributions, gives them opportunities to be productive, have a sense of purpose, continue to learn, and businesses benefit, as we've just heard, as well as communities when people become tax-paying citizens. And this is part of a broader national movement to really have employment be the first and preferred service option and optimal outcome for adults with disabilities, which is what our Employment First policy states. And you can go to the next slide, where it really talks about how this Employment First movement has really become a national movement. The U.S. Department of Labor's Office of Disability Employment Policy, known as ODEP, has supported state governments in implementing systems change efforts to move towards employment first and really make integrated employment a true reality and meaningful option for adults. And part of this is really urging systems like ours to work on aligning policies, service delivery practices, and reimbursement structures that really are going to commit and support competitive integrated employment as the priority option. And then the next slide, you will see, and Josh pulled this together, some information that really shows since the early 2000s the significant growth of states that have some active involvement around establishing some formal employment first policies. Sometimes that's legislation, sometimes it's an executive order or a directive, but states are really moving in this direction of really making this kind of front and center and putting some teeth behind it. So this might be an area to really look at in terms of understanding what your own state might be doing around employment first. Next slide. So in thinking about our Employment First initiative, and as I mentioned, we developed our policy back in 2010, but really to enable us to engage in the really significant kind of changes in service design and what we call our kind of transformation of our employment and day program services, we developed a plan called our Blueprint for Success, and it was really around promoting integrated employment, and it was a collaborative process with our provider network here in Massachusetts, self-advocates, family members, and other stakeholders to develop this 4-year plan and outlined a series of goals and specific steps we were going to take over those 4 years, what we needed in terms of funding resources and investment to make that happen, and what we also needed to focus on in terms of capacity building so that employment providers and business community, those relationships were there and people had the skills and knowledge and resources they needed to make employment a reality for more and more people. So one of the first steps, as Maureen references, we closed all our sheltered workshops, which happened over about a 1.5-year period. So as of July 1st of last year, we're no longer funding those services. So we now have more and more people working in integrated employment, both in individual and in some in small group settings. And we're continuing to evolve how we use our community-based day support services as a pathway for employment. Some of the capacity building initiatives that we really invested in that I think have been instrumental and central to our success, including our collaboration with all the partners, and we continue to meet regularly, is providing a really broad and diverse array of training for job developers, job coaches, people involved in providing direct employment services, providing technical assistance and consultation to provider organizations to really help facilitate and assist them in the redesign of their services from sheltered work to more integrated employment, and also investing in some new initiatives. And there was reference to these regional employment collaboratives, and so DBS has funded 6 of these across the state, where there's employer liaison to bring together providers of employment services for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, as well as it has a cross-disability focus, so there's people there from other agencies as well. And they serve as that kind of primary contact around outreach to different businesses, helping streamline access to job opportunities, and they bring together a job developer network where people share job leads. And so they became this logical point of contact for this UnxStar employment campaign. We can go to the next slide. which, and I'll just reference we developed an Employment First website as well that was on the previous slide, and there's a lot of information there, resources, as where trainings are posted, and success stories, and lots of tools and resources. And here's just a kind of list that really helps demonstrate kind of the wide array of jobs that people have, are successfully performing. And I think a big part of our whole employment campaign and this employment campaign and our initiative is really about how you raise expectations and get people to really think differently about the kinds of possibilities that might be available, ways to support training and access to different kinds of jobs and different types of businesses, and to really move away from some of the more kind of stereotypical jobs that people might be limiting for people with intellectual disabilities and Down syndrome. So on the next slide, it really talks about how we provide support that assist individuals who are looking and need help with employment services, and how that also meets the needs of employers. And so through the funding of our individual and group supported employment services, we provide a wide array of supports that both are hopefully responsive to helping individuals obtain jobs and provide that more individualized assistance in every step along the way, but also meet the needs of our other customer, the employers, business people, so that there's a successful job match, and so that people are going to be perform well in their jobs, happy in their jobs, and kind of meet their employer expectations. So that can include doing some career planning with job seekers, helping people identify interests, really working in a very individual way on job development, figuring out what's going to be a good job match, what are those work conditions, environmental considerations, what are the supports that are going to help that person be successful, to really engage in that business outreach and engagement. So both, job agencies we contract with have job developers who are out looking for job opportunities for people, and then also working through the different collaboratives to find openings and matches that will meet well the interests and needs of the person they're helping obtain a competitive job for. And then really supporting that placement and providing a wide array of supports that complement and supplement sort of the training and supervision that that employer would provide for the person as well. So through job coaches who might provide some additional training, who provide some, assistance in helping that person get acclimated to the job, getting connected socially. And I think really building in those natural supports, which really becomes important in terms of people becoming really well integrated and integral to the workplace, developing friendships and relationships, being part of the culture, being part of the social life of the workplace. And then that ongoing consultation with the employer and coworkers, so that people can be supported if there's any concerns or issues, if there's opportunities for job advancement or need for some additional training because there have been some changes in job duties, then providers are available to step in and do that. And so an important part of our employment services that we fund is really that ongoing job coaching support that's really varies and is kind of customized to the needs of each person. Next slide. I also want to mention that I think an important part of our employment initiative and the successes we've had to date is really beginning to expand how we approach successful job development and placements for individuals, and using either what's called peer job carving or a more customized approach to employment. So we know there's many individuals we assist with Down syndrome or other intellectual disabilities who can fit into existing job descriptions and meet the needs of employers as they've identified positions that need to be filled. But there's also individuals who sometimes there might be things about those existing job descriptions that aren't a great fit, or they might have other interests or skills that maybe in a more tailored position might work out more effectively. And so one of the approaches is really to work with businesses in looking at the kinds of jobs they need to get done, and there's ways at times to really restructure existing jobs or pull together a combination of job tasks that kind of better use the staff resources they already have in that business, and that will capitalize on the skills and strengths of workers who might have more significant disabilities. And I think this approach and strategy is going to be increasingly important as we really try to continue to expand making employment an opportunity and a reality for more and more individuals who might have different challenges or more significant challenges as they as we think about them in an employment situation. And so how we can carve out those positions becomes important. So it's either that developing a new position or selecting certain duties that might be a better fit. And on that Employment First website, there's a nice sort of success story there of this young woman, Maggie, who is a young woman with Down syndrome who wanted to work in an office situation. And you can see her and her job coach and the CEO of this small advertising agency to really talk about how they really worked with that job coach employment provider to redesign some of the job duties that the administrative assistant wasn't getting to on a regular basis that fit well with Maggie's interests and abilities, and it's really worked out to be a kind of positive situation for everyone involved. So I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to turn it over to Josh, who's the communications director at the Mass Down Syndrome Congress, and he's going to share more about the UnxStar campaign and the connection then with, our agency in terms of the linkages with the regional employment collaboratives and our provider network of about 100 employment provider agencies across the state who might be providing assistance in helping people get into these jobs and supporting them in their job situations.
Great. Thank you, Margaret and Maureen. You can already hear from them that our collaboration with the state has been incredibly valuable and productive, and that's kind of what I'm going to get into is the nuts and bolts of the MDSC's UnxStar campaign and how we've worked with that collaboration and other collaborations to make a difference. So next slide, please. So I wanted to start just with a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. If a man doesn't have a job or an income, he has neither life nor liberty nor the possibility for the pursuit of happiness. So I think that this, this quote, number one, it doesn't mention disability explicitly, and it's back in the 1960s. So I think that shows, number one, that employment reform, and if you look at it in a certain light, then it's really been overdue for a long time, and it really is a civil rights issue as as sort of exemplified by Martin Luther King, speaking these words that really do relate to people with disabilities. Next slide, please. So, having a job or a career really is central to who we are as individuals. Everybody can relate to the need for good employment opportunities. And the fact is that all segments of our community care about employment. If we're looking at the work that we do, then, expectant parents, for example, they certainly want to know that the future is bright for their children. And, touches really on all of the work that we do, whether you're looking at education, transition, the inclusion work that we do, and even, social opportunities. They often come out of, being integrated into a work environment. Next slide. And so, we were looking at building an employment initiative that engages employers and makes a difference in the community. And we kind of had these very specific goals that we had in mind. One is to highlight the real life stories, the success stories of employers, to share resources not only for employers, but also employees. And to keep in mind the idea of making larger systemic changes, on a sort of broader, big picture policy level. So we have integrated that into our campaign as well. And then the kind of bottom line piece was that we really want to be able to make a measurable difference on the ground for hiring people out there in the world, or for us here in Massachusetts. Okay, next slide. So our UnxStar partnership was our partnership with the Department of Developmental Services and the collaborative was developed, and it really is a first of its kind online employment center designed exclusively for people with Down syndrome. It leverages the MDSC's public relations network. We identified qualified candidates through the collaboratives, as Margaret talked about. We forge connections with legislative leaders. We partner on forums that I'll talk about, Diversify Your Workforce forums. And we take advantage of our MDSC Self-Advocate Speakers Bureau that we've kind of developed in coordination with this campaign. Again, we highlight employers who have successfully integrated people with intellectual disabilities into their workforce to make sure they're getting attention and to share those great stories. Next slide. So what we did is we created a campaign that's really aimed at changing the situation of employing people with Down syndrome and other disabilities. So with UnxStar, what we're doing is we're calling it UnxStar because we're talking directly to employers who are the people who can really make a difference just simply by making hires. So UnxStar is a website. It has FAQs. It has resources for employers and for applicants, and it has a blog with the latest news. But it's also a way to take action, and to whether it's telling your employer, we have action steps that you can take to simply tell your employer about the campaign and about these issues, and ability to reach out to your legislator with a specific ask to support either funding or policy proposals related to employment of people with disabilities. So as part of the initiative, as we've talked about, we formed this great partnership with the Department of Developmental Services and the 6 regional employment collaboratives throughout the state. And the employment collaboratives really help to bridge the gap between employers who are wanting to hire people with disabilities and the qualified candidates who can meet whatever particular needs a business has. So once a business is ready to take the next step and make a hire, we are able to set them up with a business account manager from a regional collaborative who will then help them to actually make it happen. Next slide. So, here in Massachusetts, kind of looking at all the different segments of the economy that we're involved in, the different kinds of employers, restaurants, supermarkets. We have so many universities. We have some, incredible area hospitals. Obviously, the Boston area sports teams and the retail market. So, if you think about where you are and what are the major industries, even here in Massachusetts, it's certainly going to differ between, this part of the state in Eastern Mass where I am and in Western Mass where there might be other kinds of jobs, maybe in farming or something that's more rural kind of positions. So the next thing I want to do, if we go to the next slide, is we're going to actually show the video of our centerpiece video for our UnxStar campaign. And I'll just go ahead and let it play. I don't think we hear any sound, Colleen. So yeah, in our centerpiece video, we're really trying to show the diversity of jobs that people with Down syndrome are working in. And and showing that the sky is really the limit in terms of what kinds of jobs people can work in.
Melissa.
My name is
Josh, can you hear it now?
Donnie.
Yeah, I can hear it.
Hi, my name is Scott. I work for the Boston University Giant. I come to work every day with a smile
You
on
can't
my
see
face.
it now, though. I can't.
Every day.
Oh,
I have
hold
a
on.
positive attitude. Great positive attitude. I always on time to work.
All right, thanks. I don't fake being sick. I don't quit.
That work, Josh?
Hi, my name is Nicole.
My name
Yeah,
is
that works.
My name
Perfect.
is Philip A. Down here.
my name is Nina Dutiares.
Hi, my name is Scarlett Raby. I work for the Boston Western Kindergarten.
I come to work every day with a smile on my face.
Smile on my face every day. I have a positive attitude. Great positive attitude. I always on time to work.
All right, thanks. I don't fake being sick.
I don't quit.
I have worked at the State House for 3 years. 10 años.
I've been working here for 5 years. 13 years. 19 years. I love my job.
I love my job. I love your job.
Yes, I do love my job. That's definitely true.
I worked hard at school.
I know how to listen.
I know how to overcome challenges.
I've done my whole life.
Having someone in your office with Down syndrome can make a whole lot of difference. Make it better.
For coworkers and customers, I may need a little more time.
Do know the job. Extra support.
Extra tools. But those are easy to find.
And the rewards will worth it.
Yeah, it's worth it. It's worth it all the way.
A lot of people just come to the grocery store to get groceries, but Phil makes it more of an experience. If he's not bagging on a register, where'd Phil go? If he's on break, they're questioning it. They notice. Phil likes to take care of the customer and make sure that we always remember that.
It's absolutely important in today's world to have a diverse workforce because our society is diverse. When you have people that have a positive attitude, that like coming to work, it's contagious. Nicole is one of our leaders when it comes to that.
The thing that I always say about Melissa is Melissa has become my ambassador. Not only does she take the job very seriously and is very committed to helping the constituents I represent, but she's really there to help anyone.
As soon as John walks into the building, everybody's mood instantly changes. I think John is one of our most valuable employees. I'm proud to call him my co-worker. It's good work.
That's a good way, Bob. We love working with Lena, and she does a good job.
Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So if you value hard work,
Hard work. If you value diversity. Reliability.
with stability,
Honestly,
here I am.
Here I am. Here I am.
Here.
I'm ready for work.
All right, great. Thank you. Thank you, Colleen. So, that video, that's the centerpiece video for our UnxStar campaign. And you can find it at yournextstar.com. We also have three kind of pull-out videos that highlight some of the individuals that are in there and a little bit more about their particular jobs and personalizing them more. But it's, the video is something that's really helping us with our campaign to just get the word out as widely as possible. In total, those videos have over 12,000 views and rising. So we're, definitely encourage you to kind of explore that. And then, we're really kind of using an all-above approach to making our initiative successful. So that includes working with private and public entities to leverage our advocacy efforts and ensure adequate funding for employment services. So, looking at grant opportunities, looking at partnering with state agencies, looking at leveraging community and member contacts as well. Next slide. And then one of the things that we're doing is what we've called Diversify Your Workforce Forums, where we're really, we have this UnxStar web-based campaign. We're also getting out into the community and setting up these regional meetings to get out and present to employers, bring employers into the room and bring together some model employers who are doing this kind of thing, a self advocate to tell their story about their success story, and a disability attorney, which we found is a real key piece for employers to have their questions answered by somebody, an expert in the law, as well as state legislators to again give kind of that big picture public policy piece. So we've gone around we've done 4 of them now in different parts of Massachusetts, and we have one coming up in the fall in Greater Boston, and found that that's really key to getting out there in the grassroots level. And next slide. And then we're using local and member networks to set up speaking engagements with communities, community and business groups, or disability partner agencies. So basically just trying to do everything we can to, again, expand the reach of the campaign. Next slide, please. So, there are many ways to approach developing successful partnerships with employers who are interested in hiring people with Down syndrome. Convincing businesses by making the business case, using some of the innovative approaches that Margaret referenced, and of course telling those success stories. And then, I would just encourage, anybody setting up this kind of campaign, or trying to bring employers in, just to make that what employers are really looking for is as simple a process as possible. And that's what we try to do with your UnxStar and our collaborations, is to make sure that there's a single point of contact and a very streamlined approach, as well as making sure that employers have an opportunity to network is also a critical piece. Next slide, please. So this just really shows how important it is for businesses to really understand that disabilities are everywhere, and of course Down syndrome is just one of many disabilities. So 30% of America's 70 million families have at least one family member with a disability. Out of the 3 million people working age adults here in Massachusetts, a full 12%, or 438,000 people, have a disability. So it's really not a population that can be ignored when you're considering hiring, and certainly there's so many one more reason to hire people with disabilities. So on the next slide, then, I just want to kind of wrap up and talk about what you can do when you leave, when you go out on your own. Just a couple of things to think about. One is researching how the employment and funding system actually works in your state, to establish those relationships and connections with the potential collaborators, for-profit, nonprofit entities, to identify model employers, both to tell their stories, get their stories out there, but also to recognize them. We've set up a new award at our annual conference, where we give an annual award to an employer of the year, and we found that that's really important to give employers something to strive for, and then to look into launching your own campaign. And that's our presentation. I just shared some national resources that you can look into. There's just an amazing array of organizations out there doing great work, that you can certainly find out a lot more information. But I think that we're gonna just go to kind of taking questions now, and we'll all kind of jump in and answer what we can.
Hi everyone, it's Colleen again from NDSS. I wanted to thank you all for coming. I just wanted to let you know that if you are using the GoToWebinar app, you should be able to go to the chat section or go to the question section and type a message if you have something to ask. Maureen, Margaret, or Josh, now could be the time. If not, also we will be starting this webinar further questions. On behalf of the National Down Syndrome Society, I first want to thank Maureen Gallagher, the Executive Director of MDSC, Margaret Van Gelder, the DDS Statewide Director of Employment and Family Support, and the Massachusetts Down Syndrome Congress Communications Director, Josh I'm going to butcher this, Komarov. As we learned today, employment campaigns like DS Works and Your UnxStar are promoting inclusion and participation in the community. NDSS has found that promoting our own initiative has begun to change the way that the individuals in the community view individuals with Down syndrome. At NDSS, we know that individuals with Down syndrome are ready, willing, and able to work. We just have to change the employment culture, which I believe programs like this are striving to do. So again, thank you MDSC and the Massachusetts Department of Developmental Services for advocating for employment in the state of Massachusetts. You were a great case study to learn from and a great affiliate program to hear from today. I also want to thank all of those who attended the webinar today. Again, as Josh mentioned earlier, your advocacy can influence the way society and employers view individuals with Down syndrome. So, you don't even have to start your own campaign, but make people in your state and employers in your area aware of programs like Your UnxStar and Employment First and DS Works, so that we can make this employment opportunities more readily available for individuals with Down syndrome. For more information, please visit the MDSC website, employmentfirst.leadcenter.org and ndss.org as well. And also these, as I mentioned before, these slides will be circulated. You will have the links that Josh showed earlier. And again, for more information, you can email myself or any of the other participants on the call. I will circulate those emails. We have not been asked any questions or, oh, wait, we have questions. Can we go back to the website resources? Yes, we will. Here's the national resource list that Josh provided us with. Courtney Hansen asks, and anyone can answer this question, Josh, Maureen, or Margaret, what's the first step if you live in a state that doesn't even have any activity or formal policy?
I think one of Josh's, Maureen, one of Josh's suggestions was to, reach out to others in your area. So there should be a state entity. I don't know which state you're from, but in Massachusetts, we have the Massachusetts Department of Developmental Services, and every state should have an agency that supports individuals with Down syndrome or other intellectual and developmental disabilities. And many of them are aware of the National Employment First initiative. So I would think maybe gathering some other advocates, such as yourself, together to talk about employment, and then scheduling a meeting to sit down with them to talk about what is being done in your state. Also, any other disability-related organizations like an ARC, a council. We have the Massachusetts Developmental Disabilities Council in Massachusetts. Every state has a Developmental Disabilities Council. So that's how I would start, is reaching out to your state agency, your Developmental Disabilities Council, and any other advocacy organizations that serve people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and set up meetings and find out what's being done, and share with them kind of your passion around making a difference in the lives of people with Down syndrome, and start to have some conversations about what can be done in your state.
Thank you, Maureen.
Margaret. I'm just going to add to one of the national resources is APSI, the Association of People Supporting Employment First. And I don't know if every state has a state chapter, but there are many of them. They've also, that might be another great advocacy organization if there is a state chapter in the state you're in to reach out to. And they've been very much in the forefront of some of these employment first initiatives as well. So I think that could be another resource. And if you have a statewide self-advocacy organization, here in Massachusetts, we have Massachusetts Advocates Standing Strong. That's another group to sort of think about bringing together, and it was really some of their voices as well that I know influenced our commissioner and other leadership staff here about the importance and I think the urgency of taking some of the steps we did.
Thank
And
you,
we're
Maureen.
happy to work with other people too. I mean, feel free to contact individually me or Josh, and we're happy to talk to you once we understand better where you live, and we can, we can help you. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us directly or to the NDSS, because we're all here to support each other.
That was a great way to answer the question. Thank you, ladies. We were also asked, and maybe Josh and Maureen, you guys can talk a little bit more about this, but wanting to know how long it took you to develop your UnxStar campaign and the infrastructure underlying it, like the website, your stakeholder connections, before launching the program.
Well, it's interesting. The initiative actually came from work that our board of directors did, and every year our board meets and they look at our strategic plan, they look at the different purposes of the organization, and you can find those on our website. And they decided one year after a board retreat that public awareness needed to be one of our top priorities. And so the whole employment campaign came out of our thoughts around, educating the general public about what the true capabilities are and the contributions are of people with Down syndrome. And so we actually had a steering committee that met. We actually hired a consultant to help us craft a public awareness initiative. And we had advisors to that consultant, some of the MDSC staff, myself and Josh, and then our public relations committee and others, to try to figure out, what kind of message do we want to send to the general community about people with Down syndrome. And employment came up as, something that really resonated with everybody who participated. So that's how it all came about. And I'd say it took a period of 2+ years to actually launch the campaign. So we had to figure out what we wanted to do. Then once we decided what we wanted to do, we had to figure out, well, how can we accomplish this? And with the limited resources we had, we thought, well, an online campaign made sense. We didn't have hundreds of thousands of dollars to do an advertising campaign, but we heard that through our consulting engagement that you can have an amazing impact with an online presence. And that's why we decided to make an online campaign, to develop a website, and then eventually develop our own centerpiece video. And Josh has done an amazing job leading the project. And with again, a lot of it has been collaborations and reaching out with people in our network, and people were just very, very generous with their time and wanting to partner with us. So it took, at least 2 years in the making.
Yeah, I mean, I would just add too that we did in there as well, that we had done a membership survey to survey our membership about what issues were important to them, and we definitely saw that that there was a huge gap there in terms of loved ones graduating from high school and not being able to find good employment opportunities. So that was definitely a takeaway from our general membership, was that an employment campaign might be a direction to go in. Yeah, a big piece of it was really identifying a web developer that was going to kind of, have this similar kind of vision to what we did, and a videographer, again, who was, understanding of sort of where we're coming from, and sensitive to, disability issues, and of course being able to work on our, moderate budget.
Thank you, both of you, for providing those answers. We've got two more questions left, so we'll try to make these nice and quick. One individual on the webinar is in Washington State, and she says that all of the funding for the DDA services that include employment are funded through Medicaid. Making sure that information gets out that it's through Medicaid is essential. Are programs in Massachusetts safe from Medicaid cuts?
I'm sorry, did you say the last part of the question is, are services in Massachusetts safe from Medicaid cuts?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So the services we fund, so as a state agency, we get funding appropriated, through our state budget, but these employment services are what we call home and community-based waiver services, which from which we get reimbursement from Medicaid, the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services. So it's we get reimbursement of up to about 50% of the funding. So right now, that's very important to us. I'm not sure what potentially the impact would be if there's some big changes in terms of Medicaid funding and block grants, but we get the funding through our state budget. We contract with providers directly. We pay for those services, and then we seek reimbursement for those federal waiver services for people who are enrolled in our home and community-based waiver programs. We also are able to provide some services to people who may not be enrolled in those services. So I think for most states, and I don't know with Medicaid, I think from Washington State, it might be kind of similar. I think these are waiver services, but I don't know if the funding comes directly from Medicaid or through the state process. So we all have to be very mindful that, Medicaid is an important and huge source of funding for a lot of the long-term services that, state agencies like ours provide for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We also do partner some with our vocational rehabilitation agency, and that's another source of funding for, kind of supported employment or other employment or training services, and that's certainly an avenue in terms of accessing, funding resources or opportunities for support that people might need to enter employment.
Great. And since we're almost at the end of our time, we've got one more question, and this individual is wondering what the payment is like for the individuals with disabilities in the workforce through your UnxStar campaign. Are the employees being paid the same or a competitive wage compared to their typically developing peers?
Yes, for our campaign, these jobs are, at least a minimum wage. So I don't know if you have additional information, Margaret, but we're expecting these to be regularly paid employees that have at least a minimum wage earnings for the employee. Do you have additional information, Margaret?
Yeah, again, you'll sort of see a range, based on the number of years someone's been working and the type of job they're doing. But as Maureen said, in these individual job placements, the expectation is people would earn minimum wage or higher. And I'm just looking at some statistics we had from last year for everyone we support in individual jobs, and it's almost $11 an hour. And one of the things in Massachusetts is the average, a minimum wage has been going up over the past few years. But so we know that we have people who, based on the nature of the job or their longevity, earn more. But when we're looking for jobs, as Maureen said, it's in businesses where people are hired and paid and get the same benefits as other workers.
Great. All right, everyone, we're all out of time and all out of questions, so it's actually a perfect ending. Again, I want to thank everyone who joined the call, especially Maureen, Margaret, and Josh. Thank you so much for your leadership in Massachusetts, and we look forward to hearing from all the attendees on the happenings in their state, and hopefully each affiliate can build up these programs on their own. And again, for more information, please visit any of these resources that Josh so kindly listed for us, or send any of us an email. And I will send this recording and the webinar to you all within the next few days. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you, Colleen. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Colleen.
We did too. It was great. Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.